In this video, we're going to take a look at 5 problems that review target 3A. We're going to start with this one here, move to this one, onto this one, fourth one, and also do a fifth one. So let's go back to the first one. We're adding two complex numbers together, and we could treat this just like if we're adding some terms, or well, I guess you could say combining like terms, where you would take 6x and add it to 8x. That would give us 14x. So treat the y's just like if you had x's there. So what I do first is just rewrite everything, but I drop these parentheses. So I have negative 23 plus 6i, and then we keep the signs of these two terms. So we're just going to write a negative 2, well, minus 2, and then add 8i, and then we combine like terms. So negative 23 and a negative 2 is going to be a negative 25, and then 6i plus another 8i gives a total of 14i, and that's going to be our final answer. Question number 2 is similar, but we're doing subtraction. So again, I'm going to rewrite all my terms. So I have 5 plus 7i, but this time, because we have subtraction, we want to use the opposite sign of both of these two terms. So our 20 becomes a negative 20 instead of positive 20, and then our 9i becomes a negative 9i, and then we just combine like terms again. So we have a 5 minus 20, that's going to be negative 15, and then 7i minus 9i leaves us with negative 2i. So it's going to be negative 15 minus 2i is our final answer. In the third problem, we are multiplying two complex numbers, so we're going to have to do some distribution. So first I want to take 10 and multiply it by negative 8. That gives me negative 80. And then I take 10 again, I multiply it by 4i. I get positive 40i. Then I take my 3i multiplied by negative 8. That gives me negative 24i. And then negative 3i times a 4i, that's going to give us positive 12i squared. Be careful with this I squared. Sometimes people forget it. When you have an I times another I, you're going to get I squared. Now I'm going to combine some like terms here. So we have negative 80. 40i minus 24i is going to be in positive 16i, and then plus 12. Now I squared is going to be the same as negative 1. We know that. So we're going to change this I squared here to be a negative 1. And now I'm going to go back and simplify a little bit more. We bring down this negative 80. Same thing with 16i. And then 12 times negative 1 becomes negative 12. And now we could even combine some more like terms. So negative 80 minus 12 is going to be negative 92. And we still have that 16i that we bring down. That's going to be my final answer. Now you could also do this using a box method. I'm going to set up a box here. And what you do is put one expression on top. So that's going to be 10 and then 3i. And then you put the other expression, which is going to be negative 8 and then plus 4i, on this side here. And you just multiply everything together again. It's going to be a negative 80 because you take negative 8, multiply it by 10. Then you take 10, multiply it by 4i. That gives us our 40i. You take negative 8, multiply it by 3i. That gives us a negative 24i. And then 3i times 4i is 12i squared. Then you'd be in charge of combining all these like terms. So you'd have negative 80. That would be out front, kind of like what we did over here. And then 40i and then negative 24i would combine together to be 16i. And then this becomes a 12 times negative 1, which would really be minus 12, and then you're back at this point right here. Your final answer would still be negative 92 plus 16i. So number 4, we need to determine what I to the 15th power means. And I have this section here where we have the remainder of 0 equals 1, remainder of 1 equals I, and so on. All you have to do is take the exponent of our I here, just 15, divide it by 4, and it doesn't even matter how many times it goes into 15. In this case, it does go in 3, but what we're really focused on is the remainder. So 4 goes into 15 3 times, but the remainder is going to be 3. That's the important part. You match up the remainder of 3 with this over here. Whoops, wrong one. Remainder of 3 is going to go here. And whenever we have a remainder of 3, our value, whatever we were starting off with, in this case it was an I to the 15th power, that's going to equal this value there. So that's the same as just saying you have a negative I. On to the last question. We need to figure out the error that was made here. And if I glance at this work right here, and I can't see an error that comes up right away, sometimes I just take these two, or whatever I have, and I just do the problem myself and then compare it. So at a glance, let's just say I don't see anything, right? So I'm going to take these two binomials, I'm going to multiply them together. I take this first term and multiply it by both of these terms. I get a 49 plus 14i. And then I take my minus 2i, multiply it by 7 and 2i, and I do get negative 14i minus 4i squared. So far, what we have here matches up with what we have here. So I'm going to combine some like terms. I'm going to get a 49, and then these two cancel out, right? And then you have minus 4. That I squared becomes a negative 1. We know that. So again, let's just keep simplifying. We have 49. This becomes plus 4 because when we have a negative 4 times a negative 1, that becomes positive 4. Oh, and there we go. There's where we were wrong. We had 49 minus 4, so that's the error that happened. Now, why do you think that they had a negative here? Well, it looks like they didn't do anything with this I squared. They just brought down the minus 4 and forgot that I squared, but I squared should become a negative 1. That's the formula for I squared. So there's your error. Let's go back and recap. We had the addition of a couple complex numbers. Then we did subtraction of complex numbers. On the multiplication, same thing with complex numbers. And then we simplified I to a large exponent. And lastly, we determined the error that was happening in this problem.